I remember the smell before anything else. Not incense, not candle wax. It was bleach struggling against damp stone, and the stone was winning. The air was cold enough to sting my teeth. I kept walking because the man ahead of me never looked back. His name was Cardinal Voss. Tall, gaunt, face cut from shadow. He carried a ring of keys wrapped in black cloth, so they made no sound at all. Each step echoed like a hammer on a coffin lid. The corridor sloped downward in slow curves, older than Rome itself. I had not been invited. I had been taken. A knock at my door, a folded note inside a prayer book I did not own, a driver who never spoke, who drove with eyes fixed on the road as if turning his head might kill him. I followed because refusal felt impossible. At the end of the hall, Voss pressed a key into a door of iron painted to resemble wood. The hinges did not creak. The silence here was trained. The room beyond was square and bare, lit by one swinging lamp. Shadows bled across the corners. On a table rested a silver bowl, a folded strip of white cloth, and a hook shaped like a question mark. Brother Malric waited there. He wore the simple brown of a humble order, the kind worn by men who sweep church steps before dawn. His face was kind, his eyes patient, but his hands were clasped too tightly, as if holding secrets in his palms. "Father Elias," he said, "you came." "I was told to," I answered. "Obedience is the door," Malric said softly. "Obedience is also the lock." Voss set an iron plaque on the table. Shallow letters cut into the surface glimmered under the lamp. He tapped them with one finger. "These are the rules. Read." I lowered my eyes. Rule 1. No blood may touch the ground. Rule 2. Do not meet the eyes of the Holy Father. Rule 3. When the eternal bell tolls 13, you must appear. Rule 4. Each soul speaks a final sentence. If not, you must speak it for them. Rule 5. When your name is read, you will not beg, and you will not resist. The words were plain, almost bureaucratic, but the lamp seemed hotter, the walls closer as I read them aloud. "What is this place?" I asked. "What do you want from me?" "Not want," Voss said. "Appoint." He lifted the linen from the table. Beneath it lay tools, polished bright, a curved blade, a small hammer, coils of rope. None belonged to any hospital. They belonged to something older. "The church," Voss said, "keeps many offices. Some are public, some are necessary." "Necessary for what?" "For the health of the body, not a man's body, the body of faith. Disease spreads there as well. Corruption, infection, we cut it away. I am not a butcher." "No," Voss said, "a butcher works for coin. You will work for God." I looked at Malric. He gave me a teacher's gaze, the kind that waits for an answer already known. "How many before me?" "Enough," Voss said, "and after me." "As many as it takes." Malric placed a leather book into my hands. It was heavier than it looked. The pages were worn, smudged by fingers long gone. I opened to the mark. A line waited empty, as if carved for my name before I was born. "You will sign," Voss said, "after the first work is complete." I closed the book. The hook on the table seemed to lean toward me, listening. "Whose blood first?" Voss turned his head slightly, as if he could see through the stone walls to the sleeping city above. "A bishop. His crimes stain the altar. You will learn the method tonight. You will learn how to keep the ground clean." From far away, yet close as breath, a bell began to toll. 1, 2. Each strike carried down the stone corridor. 10, 11, 12, then one more. 13. The sound quivered in my chest like a nail driven too deep. Voss pressed the iron plaque into my hands. It was heavier than metal should be. The words were cold against my skin. "Present yourself," he said. I stepped forward. The plaque was still in my hands when they led me deeper. The air grew colder, not like winter, but like water seeping through cracks no sunlight had touched in centuries. My skin prickled as though unseen fingers tested the weight of my resolve. The corridor opened into another chamber, circular this time, with walls lined by narrow alcoves. Each alcove held something hidden under black cloth. The lamplight bent away from them, as if even fire refused to look too closely. Cardinal Voss stood in the center, his crimson robes pooled around his shoes like liquid. He lifted his hand and pointed at the plaque. "Read them again," he commanded. I obeyed. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. The words seemed louder than stone. "No blood may touch the ground. Do not meet the eyes of the Holy Father. When the eternal bell tolls 13, you must appear. Each soul speaks a final sentence. If not, you must speak it for them. When your name is read, you will not beg, and you will not resist." The rules echoed, but the echo was not my own voice. It was deeper, older, like something repeating me with hunger. "What do these rules mean?" I asked. Voss's mouth curved, not into a smile, but into something sharper. "They mean what they say, and more. Every office of the church has traditions. Some you see in daylight, some are carried here in shadow. Tradition is the spine of survival." Brother Malrique stepped closer. He laid a hand on my shoulder. His touch was gentle, but his grip was iron. "Think of them as scripture for your office. You obey not because you understand, but because disobedience is fatal." "Fatal to me," I said. "Fatal to you," Malric agreed, "and sometimes to far more." Voss moved to one of the covered alcoves. He pulled the cloth away. Inside was a stone slab, cracked, stained dark in lines that had seeped deep into its pores. Above it, hooks dangled from chains. The air smelled faintly of rust and something older than rust. "This is where you will work," Voss said. "This is where disease is removed." The word disease made bile rise in my throat. I had heard confession for years. I had seen greed, lust, cruelty, and pride. I had told men and women their sins could be washed away with prayer and penance. Never once had I told them their blood must be spilled on stone. "You want me to kill," I whispered. "Execute," Voss corrected. "There is a difference. Execution is judgment. Execution is ritual. Execution is service." My eyes returned to the plaque. Rule 1. No blood may touch the ground. I looked at the slab. It was stone, but beneath it ran a channel carved with precision. "How do you keep the ground clean?" I asked. Malric answered. "The blood flows only where it is meant, into vessels prepared for it, into cloth sanctified to hold it. If even a drop touches stone, the soul is unbound. An unbound soul does not rest. It festers. It returns." Rule 2. Do not meet the eyes of the Holy Father. "Why?" I asked. Voss's gaze sharpened. "Because eyes carry truth, and truth can kill faith. You will look at your task, not at his gaze. If you see him, you may falter. If he sees you, he may speak your true name. And then you will belong to him forever." Rule 3. When the eternal bell tolls 13, you must appear. I remembered the sound I had just heard. It had felt like a nail through my chest. "What bell is that?" I asked. Malric's hand tightened on my shoulder. "It is not a bell you can see. It rings when it must. It rings when the office calls. Distance means nothing. Doors mean nothing. You will arrive, whether you walk willingly or not." I felt my throat dry. The driver who had collected me. The note I had not written. The way refusal had already been impossible. I understood. Rule 4. Each soul speaks a final sentence. If not, you must speak it for them. "What does that mean?" Malric's eyes grew heavy. "Each condemned carries a truth, a confession, a final seed of memory. If they refuse to give it, you must place words in their mouth. And those words will burn into your own soul. You will remember them as if they were yours. You will carry them until you die." Rule 5. When your name is read, you will not beg, and you will not resist. The words made my bones ache. Who reads it? I asked. Voss replaced the cloth over the slab. The right decides. The same right that appoints you now will one day appoint another. The chain is unbroken. You serve until your own name is spoken. That is the law. That is the end. I tried to speak, but my tongue felt thick. The plaque in my hands pulsed cold. The stone beneath my feet seemed to shift, as if waiting to drink whatever I spilled. Malric guided me toward the slab. You will see tonight. You will learn tonight. But you must never forget the rules. They are not suggestions. They are the walls of your soul. Break them, and the walls collapse. Collapse with them, and nothing remains. The lamp swung slightly above us. Shadows bent long across the floor, stretching like chains. My reflection in the silver bowl trembled. Already a stranger. Somewhere above, a church bell rang the hour. But down here, beneath Rome, I thought I could still hear the echo of 13, and the echo was not finished. The chamber smelled different that night. Less of stone, more of sweat and fear. A man was already waiting on the slab when I arrived. His robes had been stripped away, replaced by a plain shift. His wrists and ankles were bound with ropes that looked older than either of us. Cardinal Voss stood beside him, silent as stone. Brother Malric guided me forward. His hand was steady on my shoulder, but his grip pressed until my knees threatened to bend. "This is Bishop Rowan," Malric said. His tone was almost gentle, like a priest introducing a parishioner before confession. He sold what was sacred, relics, chalices, bones of saints. He traded holiness for coin. Rowan lifted his head. His face was swollen, eyes red from weeping. He shook his head violently. "Lies," he croaked. "I did what I was told. They all knew. I am no thief." "Do not listen," Voss said to me. "Listen only to the rules." The plaque was in my hands again. Its edges cut cold into my skin. My lips trembled as I whispered them. "No blood may touch the ground. Do not meet the eyes of the Holy Father." When the eternal bell tolls 13, you must appear. Each soul speaks a final sentence. If not, you must speak it for them. When your name is read, you will not beg, and you will not resist. Rowan twisted on the slab, the ropes biting into his arms. "Please," he begged, his voice cracking. "I am old. I am tired. Let me leave with what little time remains." His plea struck me harder than the stone air. I had heard dying men beg for mercy in hospitals. I had heard criminals promise reform in court. But this voice belonged to someone who had spent a lifetime in sacred robes. Malric placed a silver bowl in my hands. "Hold it beneath the wound. Keep the ground clean." I shook my head. "I am not—" "You are." Voss cut me off. His eyes gleamed. "The right has already chosen." The hook was handed to me next. I wanted to throw it across the room, but my fingers closed around it, stiff, unwilling, as if they belonged to another man. Rowan sobbed now, choking on words. "Please, Father, I served, I prayed, they forced me. Enough," Voss snapped. "Speak your final sentence." Rowan squeezed his eyes shut. His lips trembled. No words came. Voss nodded once. "Then you will provide it, Father Elias." My stomach lurched. I remembered Rule 4. If the condemned did not speak, I must speak for them. "What do I say?" I asked. "Truth," Malric said softly. "Say the truth you feel in him. Then it is his. Then it is yours." Rowan's eyes opened, desperate, wide. He shook his head in panic, but no words left his mouth. The silence grew heavy. The lamp hummed. The stone waited. I spoke, though I did not mean to. "Greed rotted my soul, and I sold the bones of the holy for silver." The words burned my throat like smoke. Rowan screamed, his body arching. Blood burst from the wound left by the hook, pouring into the bowl I held. None touched the stone. The ropes trembled. The slab shook. but the ground remained clean. Rowan's eyes rolled back. His chest heaved once, twice, then stilled. I lowered the bowl, my arms shaking. The blood inside was darker than it should have been, almost black, thick as tar. I set it down on the altar step, afraid it might spill. Malric whispered a prayer. Voss wrote something into a ledger, the quill scratching louder than any breath. I staggered back from the slab. My knees nearly buckled. "That was not justice," I said. "That was murder." "No," Voss said calmly. "That was necessary." Rowan's mouth twitched. His lips parted. For a moment I thought he was still alive, but the sound that escaped was not his voice. It was a whisper, low and strange, seeping from the cracks in the wall. I froze. The whisper spread, curling through the chamber like smoke. The words were faint but sharp enough to cut. "He will come for you, Elias." The bowl rattled. The blood quivered. The lamp swayed though no wind stirred. I looked at Malric. His face was pale, but his hand gripped the trinket at his belt so tightly that blood seeped from his palm. "What was that?" I whispered. "Nothing," Voss said quickly. His voice was too quick. "Only echoes. The condemned are empty once judgment is past." But the whisper had not stopped. It grew softer, deeper, sinking into the stone around me. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, carrying Rowan's stolen words. Malric hurried to cover the body with a cloth. Voss snapped the ledger shut. "Leave," Voss commanded. "Your work is finished for tonight." I stumbled into the corridor, the plaque still in my hand, heavier than before. The 13 strikes of the bell echoed again in my chest. My ears rang. But underneath the ringing, I heard Rowan's words repeating, softer, hungrier. "He will come for you, Elias." I pressed my back against the wall, breath shallow. The stone was damp. Or maybe it was sweating my fear back into me. The blood had not touched the ground, yet something else had been set loose. I could not sleep that night. My body was weary, but my mind dragged me back to the slab again and again. I saw Rowan's face, his pleading eyes, his mouth that never spoke the words, yet still cursed me. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whisper swelling from the stone. "He will come for you, Elias." The room provided for me was small, bare, nothing more than a cell disguised with furniture. A narrow bed. A desk with a Bible I did not remember opening. The window looked toward nothing, only another wall of stone. I sat there in the dark, my hands still smelling of iron. A soft knock came at the door, not the sharp command of soldiers, not the chill rap of Voss, softer, human. I opened it and found a woman in simple white habit. She carried a lantern with its flame hidden behind a shutter. "Sister Catherine," she said, bowing her head slightly. I nodded. My throat was dry. "What do you want?" "I heard the bell last night," she answered. "I know what that means. You were the one chosen." Her eyes were kind, but not naive. They carried weight, like she had already seen too much. She stepped into the room and closed the door quietly. "Did he speak to you?" she asked. I hesitated. Rowan was dead. "Not him," she said softly. "The walls, the stone." "Did the stone speak?" The memory shivered through me. "You know about that?" "I have served here for years," Catherine said. "I have heard whispers in the corridors, voices in the chapel floors. They do not vanish when the condemned die. They linger. And if you listen carefully, they tell pieces of truth." I sat heavily on the bed. "Truth or madness? Both," she said. "Often they are the same." For a long moment we sat in silence. Her lantern flame painted faint gold on the walls, softening the stone that had always seemed cruel. She reached into her robe and drew out a thin notebook, worn and frayed. "Pages filled with neat lines of writing. These are fragments I have recorded," she explained. "Final sentences that were never spoken aloud but still found their way to me. Sometimes through whispers, sometimes through dreams. They form a pattern." I took the notebook, my fingers trembling. The handwriting was careful, precise. Words in Latin, words in Italian, words I knew but did not want to read. One line caught me. The chain is endless until blood touches earth. I closed the book quickly. My heart thudded like the bell. If this is true, then every rule is a prison. Catherine lowered her gaze. Yes. A silence heavier than stone filled the room. She left the lantern on the desk and slipped out, leaving me with the notebook and my thoughts. When sleep finally claimed me, it was not rest. It was a door I had not chosen to open. I stood once more in the chamber, but it was empty. No lamp, no slab, no cardinal, no Brother Malrique. Only stone, black and endless. My footsteps echoed without sound. Then a shadow moved. A man, or what remained of one, rose from the dark. His robes were shredded, his eyes hollow sockets leaking smoke. Chains clung to his arms and chest, but they rattled without touching the floor. "I am Father Lucian," he whispered. His voice scraped like knives against glass. "I was before you. I carried the bowl. I spoke the sentences. I obeyed. My breath hitched. What happened to you?" "I broke nothing," he said. "I kept every rule. I kept the ground clean. I kept my eyes down. I came when the bell called. I carried their last words. I did not resist when my name was spoken." The smoke from his mouth curled like fingers around my throat. "And still I am here. Still I am bound. The rules do not free you. They feed on you." The chains jerked. His body convulsed. He screamed, and the scream was not his alone. It carried dozens of voices, hundreds, men and women alike, all executioners before me, still echoing. I staggered back, clutching the plaque that had appeared in my hands again. The rules burned brighter than fire across its iron face. "Do you want release?" Lucian asked. His sockets flared white. "Then spill blood where it must not fall. Break the ground. Break the chain." The chamber shook. Cracks spread across the floor. From those cracks, hands clawed upward, pale and desperate, pulling at my ankles, dragging me down. I shouted, but the stone swallowed my voice. I woke drenched in sweat, the lantern extinguished, the notebook open on my chest. The words glowed faintly in the dark. "The chain is endless until blood touches earth." The whisper still clung to the walls of my room, faint but steady. "He will come for you, Elias." And now I wondered if Lucian's warning was not about some enemy in flesh, but about the fate waiting at the end of my own obedience. The bell called me again. 13 strikes, each one sharp enough to split the marrow in my bones. I tried to resist. I told myself I would stay in my room, that I would bury my ears in pillows, that I would let the sound pass. But when the final toll faded, I found myself already walking the corridor. My legs moved without permission. The plaque was in my hands, though I had not picked it up. The chamber waited, unchanged yet hungrier. The slab gleamed under the lamp. Ropes stretched tight across arms and ankles. This time, the man on the stone did not weep. He sneered. His lips curled as if the ropes were a joke. "This is Monsignor Hale," Cardinal Voss said. His voice held no weight of judgment, only the certainty of record. He buried testimony. He silenced survivors. He built walls of lies and filled them with the cries of children. Hale spat toward the floor. The spittle fell short, landing on his own chest. "Lies," he said. "You call me criminal while you feed me to this circus. I served the church better than any of you." My stomach churned. Rowan had begged, his voice cracking with fear. Hale mocked, his pride swelling even under rope. "Speak your final sentence," Voss ordered. Hale laughed, a short, sharp bark that echoed against the stone. "No," he said. "You want words. You want me to confess. I give you nothing. Kill me and be done with it. My silence will choke you harder than any prayer." The lamp hissed. The walls seemed to lean closer. My hand trembled on the plaque. Rule 4 burned bright across my eyes. Each soul speaks a final sentence. If not, you must speak it for them. I glanced at Malric. His face was unreadable. He gave a slow nod as if reminding me of my duty. Hale grinned at me. You are the butcher now, priest. Speak for me if you dare. The silver bowl was shoved into my hands. The hook was pressed against my palm. The weight was unbearable. Not for the metal, but for the choice. I closed my eyes and felt the words rise, not from thought, but from something deeper, a pit carved by the rules themselves. My silence is guilt, and my pride is poison. I drowned the voices of the innocent and called it service. The words tore through my throat like broken glass. Hale screamed, not fear, not pain, rage. His body arched, the ropes biting into flesh. Blood burst and streamed into the bowl. The sound of it was thicker than liquid, like molten iron poured into stone. None touched the floor. I held steady, though my arms shook as if they would break. His face twisted, his eyes bulged. He tried to speak, but only foam bubbled at his lips. The scream ended in a gurgle. His chest collapsed, still bound, still defiant even in death. The chamber pulsed. Shadows stretched long, and then the whispers began again, crawling from the cracks. This time they were louder, not one voice but many. Hale's words, my words, twisting together. My silence is guilt. My pride is poison. You spoke it, Elias. You carry it now. The bowl quivered in my hands. The blood inside rippled as though stirred by unseen breath. I nearly dropped it, but Malric caught my wrists, steadying me. His eyes were wide, almost frightened. Hold it, he hissed. Do not spill. I obeyed. Teeth clenched. My arms burned. When Voss finally waved his hand, the bowl was taken away, covered with cloth, carried into the alcove. I staggered back, gasping. My throat still felt raw, scraped by words that were never mine. You see now, Voss said. His tone was flat, but there was something beneath it, something satisfied. Even silence confesses through you. The rules do not fail. I shook my head. That was not confession. That was theft. You stole his words from me. Voss closed the ledger. Words are weight. You carry them now. Carry them until your end. That is the office you serve. Malric touched my shoulder. His hand trembled. Do not fight it, Elias. Fighting makes it worse. I pulled away from him. My chest heaved. Hale's twisted face still glared at me from behind my eyelids. I could not decide which was worse, his pride or the fact that now I had spoken it as if it were mine. When I returned to my cell, the whispers followed. They seeped into the cracks of the walls, coiled under the door, slid into my ears. My silence is guilt. My pride is poison. Over and over until the words no longer sounded like Hale's. They sounded like mine. The notebook Catherine had given me lay on the desk. I opened it with shaking hands and wrote the sentence. The ink blurred, the letters jagged. But when I finished, I saw how it joined the others she had written. A chain of confessions, each darker than the last. I slammed the book shut. My reflection in the window looked thinner, paler. My lips mouthed Hale's sentence without sound, over and over, as if the stone itself was practicing through me. The bell had rung 13. The ground had remained clean. But the weight in my chest told me something was already stained beyond cleansing, and I knew this was only the second. The days after Hale's execution bled together like ink on wet paper. I ate, I prayed, I tried to rest, but each act felt hollow, carried out by someone else while I only watched from behind the glass of my skull. The plaque never left my side. I set it on the desk, I slid it beneath the bed. I even pressed it against the wall as if trying to bury it in stone, but always it returned to my hands when I looked again. The whispers followed me like smoke. Rowan's plea, Hale's defiance, all woven into my breath. When I closed my eyes, the words scraped against my ribs. He will come for you, Elias. My silence is guilt. My pride is poison. They nested inside me until I wondered if they were mine. I sought Malric one evening in the cloister garden above the hidden halls. He sat on a stone bench, beads sliding between his fingers, his eyes lifted as I approached, calm as still water. "You look ill," he said. "I am ill," I replied. "I carry voices that are not mine. I wake with words in my mouth that I never spoke." His beads clicked once more before he stopped. "That is the office. That is the burden. It is poison," I said. "It will hollow me." "Perhaps," he admitted. His voice was even, almost kind. "But it is better you are hollowed than the church." I stared at him, searching for some crack of compassion. "You speak as though the church is more sacred than the souls it consumes." He sighed, tucking the beads into his sleeve. "Elias, you must learn this truth. Obedience preserves, doubt destroys. You think your defiance would heal? No, it would unleash rot faster than fire." I shook my head. Lucian said otherwise. The name slipped from my tongue before I could stop it. Malric's eyes sharpened. "Lucian." "In dreams," I said quickly. "He spoke to me in chains. He told me he obeyed every rule, and still he was damned. He told me the rules are not walls, but chains meant to bind, not protect." For the first time since I had met him, Malric's hand trembled. He pressed it flat to his knee, steadying himself. "You must not listen to that shadow." Lucian broke long before his end. His madness stains everything he touches. Dreams are his last doorway. He will claw at you through them. "Then why does he still exist?" I asked. "If the rules preserve, why is he not at peace? Why is he still screaming?" Malric stood abruptly. The beads clattered as they slid free again. "Enough! You will obey. You will serve until your name is read. Nothing more, nothing less." He left me alone in the garden. The smell of damp ivy filling my lungs. The silence seemed deeper than before, as if even the stars refused to listen. That night, Lucian returned. The dream was darker, heavier. I stood in a corridor without end. Plaques lined the walls, each one glowing faintly. When I touched them, the rules carved there burned my skin. Blood hissed from the wounds but never touched the ground. It hovered in the air, trembling like red glass. Lucian appeared at the far end, dragging his chains. His mouth stretched wide, eyes hollow pits of white flame. "They told you I was mad," he rasped. "They told you obedience preserves. Do you feel preserved, Elias? Do you feel whole?" "No," I admitted. My voice shook. "They will grind you into dust," he said. "Every word you steal for the condemned will carve you thinner, and when nothing is left, they will read your name. They will make you beg to die without begging." The corridor quaked. The plaques rattled, their rules ringing like bells. "I obeyed," Lucian shrieked. "Every rule, every ritual. I left the ground clean. I lowered my eyes. I came when the bell called. I spoke their last lies. I did not resist. And look at me." He spread his arms, chains stretching, his body dissolving into smoke and scream. "I am still here. I am their echo, their proof. The rules preserve nothing. They only feed the stone." The plaques began to crack, lines splitting across their glowing surfaces. From each crack bled not light but shadow, seeping across the floor like water. My feet sank into it. The cold climbed my legs like vines. Lucian's hollow eyes fixed on me. "Break the chain. Let blood touch earth. Only then will you be free." The shadow surged upward, filling my mouth, choking me. I woke, gasping in my cell, my hands clawing at my throat. The Bible lay open on the desk, though I had never touched it. Its pages were blackened with soot. The plaque sat on top, glowing faintly. I stumbled to the door, desperate for air. In the corridor, Sister Catherine waited, lantern trembling in her hand. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. "He spoke to you," she whispered. I nodded, still struggling for breath. What did he say? I looked at the plaque. The words carved there seemed to shift, twisting into something new. He said the rules do not save us, I answered. He said they devour us. Catherine closed her eyes, whispering a prayer too quiet for me to hear. The lantern flame bent low, almost snuffed by breathless fear. And in the silence that followed, I heard Lucian again, faint but certain, curling through the stones. Break the chain, Elias, break it. Catherine met me in the library that was not meant for reading. It lay 3 levels below the basilica, past shelves that held no scripture for the faithful. The books here were bound in cracked leather, pages heavy with dust that smelled of salt and ash. A guard let us pass without speaking. His eyes were open, but they did not see. She spread her notebook across a long table. Her fingers trembled as she pointed to lines I had written in my own hand. Rowan's final words, Hale's sentence stolen through me. Dozens more from names I did not recognize, voices captured before my time. Look, she whispered. I leaned closer. Each sentence by itself was a fragment, a shard of broken glass. But Catherine had arranged them carefully, linking them by repeated words, by rhythms that hummed like a buried hymn. Together they formed a chain. The chain is endless until blood touches earth. The bell tolls 13, yet the circle does not break. The hands that hold the bowl are themselves condemned. The Father of Fathers hides the final sin. The ground must drink to end the fire. My chest tightened. The words glowed against the page as if written in heat. This is not coincidence, Catherine said. Every execution leaves something behind. Every whisper, every dream, every sentence. They are fragments of a prophecy. And now they gather into one voice. I touched the page. It burned faintly against my skin. If it is true, then the rules are lies. They are not protection. They are cage. She nodded. The prophecy says release comes only when blood touches earth. That means you must break rule 1. The chamber seemed to tilt. The plaque in my pocket grew heavier. Break the rule, I repeated. Spill blood on the ground. Only then does the chain end. Her voice cracked with urgency. Elias, you may be the first in centuries to see the whole message. A sound stirred in the corridor beyond the library. A slow, deliberate tapping like fingers drumming wood. My body went rigid. Catherine froze, eyes darting to the door. The tapping grew louder, sharper, until it became the sound of a cane striking stone. Then he entered. Cardinal Voss. His robes swept the dust without touching it. His eyes shone too bright for the dim flame of the lanterns. He looked at Catherine first, then at me, then at the open notebook. How diligent, he said softly. A gardener of words, tending weeds that should never grow. Catherine closed the book quickly, clutching it to her chest. These are truths. You cannot bury them. Voss's mouth curved into something colder than a smile. Truth is a knife that cuts the hand holding it. Better that it remains sheathed. He stepped closer, his cane tapping once with each stride. Father Elias, do you understand what she offers you? Poison, disobedience. The whispers are not prophecy. They are rot given voice. I forced myself to speak, though my throat felt tight. Then why do they persist? Why does every condemned soul leave words behind? Why do I carry them as if they are my own? Voss leaned close enough for me to smell the iron on his breath. Because you allow it. Because doubt feeds them. If you obey without question, their voices fade. But you feed them with your hesitation. You water the weeds she plants. Catherine's eyes blazed. He is afraid because the prophecy unmasks him. The Father of Fathers hides the final sin. Who do you think that points to? Voss's cane struck the floor, the crack echoing like thunder. Enough! His voice cut through the air. You will not speak again of this. She held the notebook tighter. I will not stop. If Elias falters, if you silence me, others will see the same truth. The chain is not eternal. For a moment, I thought Voss would strike her. His hand hovered near the cane's silver head, trembling. But then he released a long breath and lowered his arm. "Very well," he said coldly. "Hold your scribbles. Cling to your fantasies. They will burn with you when your time comes." He turned his gaze to me. "As for you, Father Elias, remember the rules. You were chosen because you were strong enough to bear them. Do not disappoint." He left as silently as he had entered. The air in the library felt heavier, pressed down by stone. Catherine's shoulders sagged, but her grip on the notebook never loosened. She looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. "He knows. He will watch us." "But you saw the words." "You cannot deny them." I nodded slowly. My heart pounded. The prophecy was carved into me now. The ground must drink to end the fire. The plaque pulsed against my chest like a second heart. The rules chained me. The prophecy begged me to break them. And somewhere in the silence left by Voss, I thought I heard Lucian's hollow whisper curling back. "Break the chain, Elias. Break it." The 13th bell woke me from a dreamless void. I rose before I knew I had moved. My body had learned the summons too well. The corridor stretched before me, silent, except for the echo of my own footsteps. 2 Swiss guards waited at the bottom of the stair, their halberds gleaming in the torchlight. Their eyes did not meet mine. They flanked me without a word, leading me deeper than I had ever gone. The air grew colder, damp with ancient breath. At the end of the passage, a door stood half open. Its frame was carved with symbols older than the cross, spirals and circles etched into the stone. The guards halted. I was expected to enter alone. I pushed the door open. The chamber inside was nothing like the others. No slab, no ropes, no silver bowl waiting. It was a chapel, small and hidden, its walls painted with fading saints. Candles flickered along the altar, their flames bending as if bowing to a presence greater than fire. And there he was, Pope Adrian. He knelt at the altar, head bowed, hands folded in calm prayer. His robes were white but plain, without gold, without ornament. He looked smaller than I had ever imagined a pope could look, fragile, human. He turned his head slightly and his eyes found me. For a heartbeat, I forgot Rule 2. His gaze was tired, yes, but also sharp, piercing through the shadows around me. "Father Elias," he said. His voice was soft, but it carried across the chapel like a hymn. "I have been waiting for you." My throat tightened. "You knew I would come." "I always knew," he answered. "Every pope does. The chain is older than me, older than you. I accepted the crown knowing this day would arrive." I stepped closer, my boots clicking on the cold stone floor. "Then you know why I am here." He nodded. "Yes. And I do not resist. To resist would be to deny the weight I placed on others, the sins I have hidden, the deaths ordered in silence. If the rules demand blood, then it must be mine." I shook my head. "The rules are lies. I've seen the prophecy in the whispers. They say the chain ends when blood touches earth." A faint smile touched his lips, sorrowful and knowing. "Yes. I have heard those whispers, too. Every pope hears them before the end. They are the same voice that speaks through your dreams, a voice of the dead begging to be free." "Then why obey?" I demanded. "Why kneel here like a lamb waiting for slaughter?" Adrian rose slowly, joints cracking with the weight of years. He faced me fully now, his eyes steady. "Because the church survives through sacrifice. Not just Christ's, but ours. If the faithful knew the rot we cover, they would despair. Faith would crumble. I chose to bear that burden, and now I choose to pay for it." I felt the plaque pulse against my chest. The rules burned. My breath came ragged. "You are not afraid of death?" He shook his head. No, I am afraid only that the next man may carry sins darker than mine, that the chain will continue unbroken. The candles flickered higher, shadows stretching across the painted saints. I took another step forward. Then let me break it. Let the ground drink, end it. For the first time, his calm cracked. A tremor passed through his hands. If you do that, Elias, you may free us, or you may unleash something far worse. Do you understand what the rules were built to contain? No, I said. No one tells me. They only command me to obey. Because the truth is heavier than iron, Adrian whispered. The rules bind more than men. They bind the hunger beneath these stones. Spill blood where it should not fall, and the earth may remember its appetite. Silence pressed hard against my ears. My hands shook. I could not tell if his words were warning or temptation. Adrian lowered himself back to his knees, folding his hands. Do what you must. My life is already written in the ledger. My end has been decided since the day I accepted the crown. If you kill me by their rule, the chain continues. If you kill me by breaking it, then the world itself may change. Either way, I am ready. The chapel grew colder. The shadows leaned toward us. I heard Lucian's whisper curling through the stone. Break the chain, Elias. Break it. Adrian closed his eyes. His lips moved in silent prayer. I stood above him, the plaque in one hand, the other trembling toward the dagger hidden beneath the altar. My heart pounded like the bell. And in that moment, I understood the weight of the prophecy. I was no longer executioner alone. I was judge of the chain itself. The chapel door slammed behind me. Cardinal Voss entered with his cane striking the floor, each tap echoing like a nail driven into stone. Behind him came Brother Malric, carrying the silver bowl wrapped in white cloth. They moved as if rehearsed, like actors repeating a play performed countless times. Adrian did not rise. He remained on his knees before the altar, hands folded, head bowed. The candle flames bent toward him as though listening. It is time, Voss said, his eyes fixed on me. Do it, Father Elias, by the rule, by the right. Malric placed the bowl in my hands. The weight nearly toppled me. The plaque pulsed against my chest, reminding me of every line, every command. No blood may touch the ground. Adrian lifted his gaze then, and for the second time, I forgot Rule 2. His eyes were not desperate. They were calm, resigned, yet filled with something more dangerous than fear. Acceptance. You can still choose, he whispered. Voss's cane cracked against the floor. Do not look at him. Keep your eyes down. But I could not. His gaze held me. In his calm, I saw every soul I had carried. Rowan's plea, Hale's defiance, Lucian's chains. They stared back through him, demanding an answer. Malric pressed a dagger into my free hand. The blade gleamed with ritual polish, its edge cruelly perfect. He leaned close, his breath damp against my ear. Obey. If you break the rules, you are lost. Worse than lost. My hand shook, and if I keep them, I end as Lucian ended, bound forever. Lucian was weak, Malric hissed. You are stronger. Adrian's voice rose, steady and clear. The prophecy tells you otherwise. The ground must drink. Break the chain. The chapel seemed to shrink around us. The saints painted on the walls leaned forward, their faded faces warped by flickering shadows. The air thickened until every breath felt like swallowing water. Voss raised his cane, his voice thundering. Now, Elias, by the rule, end him cleanly. The bowl trembled in my hands. The blade hovered over Adrian's chest. Sweat blurred my vision. The rules seared themselves into my mind. No blood may touch the ground. Do not meet his eyes. Speak their final sentence if they refuse. But his final sentence had already been given. Break the chain. I lowered the bowl, refusing to hold it beneath the blade. Voss's voice snapped like a whip. What are you doing? I choose, I said, my voice shaking yet louder than I expected. I choose not to carry another lie. Malric grabbed my arm, forcing the bowl upward again. You cannot. The bond is written in your blood. Disobedience will tear you apart. Then let it, I spat. Adrian lifted his head, eyes bright with a strange relief. So be it. I drove the blade down, not over the bowl, not guided by ritual, but straight into his chest, angled so the blood spilled wide. It gushed across his robes, soaking the white cloth, dripping down the altar steps. For the first time, sacred blood touched stone. The chapel screamed. The walls shook, candles shattered, flames twisting into black smoke. The painted saints peeled from the walls, their faces contorted into silent cries. Voss staggered, his cane clattering against the floor. "What have you done?" Malric shouted prayers, frantic and broken, his voice lost in the roar. Adrian gasped, clutching the blade still buried in his chest. Blood streamed freely, soaking the ground. His eyes never left mine. "The chain is broken," he whispered. Then his body sagged, life pouring out onto stone that drank eagerly. The floor split, cracks snaked outward from the altar, glowing red as if the earth itself bled light. Whispers erupted, louder than ever, 1,000 voices shrieking freedom and hunger in the same breath. Voss clutched his ledger, face pale with terror. "You fool! You have unbound them all." The whispers wrapped around me, familiar and foreign. Rowan, Hale, Lucian, countless others. They surged through the chapel, filling every crevice. My ears rang with their chorus. The chain is broken. The ground remembers. The chain is broken. Malric grabbed my shoulders, his nails digging into my flesh. "Do you know what you have unleashed? This was never about one pope, one execution. The rules were bindings. You shattered them." I tore free of him, blood soaking my hands, the plaque burning like fire against my chest. For the first time, the rules felt weaker than my will. Adrian's body lay still, his blood pooling wide. The prophecy had been fulfilled, or so it seemed. But the whispers did not stop. They grew louder, hungrier, no longer pleading but celebrating. Voss shouted above the din. "You think you ended the chain, you only opened it wider." The floor heaved, a deep rumble rising from the earth. Dust rained from the ceiling. The candles were gone, yet the chamber glowed with red light seeping from the cracks. I stood in the center, bowl empty, blade bloody, stone drinking. My choice had been made, but whether I had freed us or damned us, I could not yet know. The chapel was breaking apart. Cracks split the marble floor like lightning, blood seeping into them as though the stone itself was thirsty. The whispers rose higher, weaving into a chorus that no human choir could ever sing. I clutched the dagger, my arms trembling, unsure if I still held it or if it now held me. Adrian's body lay against the altar, eyes half open, lips frozen in a faint smile. His blood spread wide, soaking into the earth. The prophecy's line burned in my skull. The ground must drink to end the fire. But the fire did not end. It spread. Voss pressed himself against the wall, his ledger clutched tight. His voice shook for the first time since I had met him. "You fool, you have no idea what you've done." Malric dropped to his knees, rosary clattering across the stone. His prayers spilled out rapid, desperate, words tripping over one another. But the voices in the cracks drowned him out, laughing, wailing, praising. The air grew heavy. I could not tell if I was breathing smoke or dust. My vision blurred, and then, cutting through it all, came the deep strike of the bell. 1, 2, 3. I staggered. The 13th bell was not meant to sound now, yet it rang, louder than ever, shaking the chapel with each toll. 7, 8, 9. The cracks widened, red light pulsing from beneath. The walls groaned like a beast awakening from centuries of sleep. 10, 11, 12. Adrian's eyes flickered once more. I swear I saw them move, staring at me with something beyond life. His lips parted, and in the roar of the 12th bell, I thought I heard a whisper. Now you will know. 13. The final strike crashed through my chest. Silence followed, pure, suffocating silence. The cracks stopped widening, the blood stilled, the air hung thick, waiting. Then came the smoke. It poured from the altar, curling upward in pale streams, not black, not gray, but pure white. It drifted higher, slipping through hidden vents, rising toward the city above. Voss gasped. No, it cannot be, not now. Malric froze mid-prayer, his mouth open, eyes wide with horror. I stared as the smoke swirled, forming shapes that almost looked like faces. Rowan, Hale, Lucian, and countless others, all merging into one vast cloud. They rose together, carried upward as though released from prison. The chapel shook once more, then stilled. The cracks sealed slowly, leaving only faint scars across the stone. Adrian's body slumped lifeless, the faint smile still on his lips. Above us, bells began to ring, not the hidden 13, but the public bells of St. Peter's. Their sound rolled down through the tunnels, announcing to the city that white smoke had risen from the Sistine Chapel. I staggered back, my knees weak. White smoke meant a new pope had been chosen. White smoke meant the cycle continued. But I knew no conclave had met, no vote had been cast. The smoke was mine, Adrian's, the grounds. Voss gathered himself, straightening his robes though dust covered them. His voice steadied with practiced certainty. The world will believe what it always believes. They will see the smoke, they will cheer, and the faith will endure. You have not ended the chain, Elias. You have only disguised it. Malric stood, his eyes burning with both terror and awe. Or perhaps, he whispered, the chain has been reborn in another form. I clutched the plaque against my chest. Its words no longer glowed, but they were still carved deep, unyielding. Yet when I read them in my mind, the first rule blurred, its letters melting until I could not tell if it still forbade blood touching the ground, or if it now commanded it. The whispers had faded, but their absence felt worse than their presence, as if they had only stepped aside, waiting. I stumbled out of the chapel, past guards who did not see me, into the corridors that trembled with the echo of bells. When I reached the courtyard, I looked up. There it was, white smoke curling from the roof of the chapel, pure against the night sky. Pilgrims in the square cried out in joy, believing a new shepherd had been chosen. They did not know 2 men lay dead beneath their feet. I pressed my back against the cold wall, blood still drying on my hands. For the first time since the chain had claimed me, there was no summons, no plaque pulling at my ribs, only silence. Yet, in that silence, a thought struck me cold. If the chain had ended, why did the smoke still rise? And if the chain had not ended, what role had I played in reshaping it? The bells rang on. The crowd cheered. The smoke drifted higher. And I stood there in the shadows, unable to tell whether I had broken the curse or only forged a new one.